Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us on the program where we cover the most interesting live trials and legal stories in the news today. A lot of things to cover. So you know what I want to say? Let's get started right now. Okay, that's a new one. We haven't heard somebody testify to that before. So much to break down in this case. That's why I'm so happy she's joining us. Attorney Terry Austin is back here on the Law&Crime Network. Terry, great to see you. Good morning. So much to talk about. I'm going to start with him, but then we have to talk about what we can expect today. So let's talk about this witness. I have not seen a witness come forward in a case before talking about how there's an actual mental disorder for someone to comply with police, where they feel that they have to just give them the answers that they want. I've heard that happening. I've heard of pressure. I've heard of that, but an actual mental disorder. What's your take?
I'm not sure I would call it a mental disorder. I do think our defendant here, Richardson, is very timid and very shy, and she does want to always please people. And I think that she doesn't know her rights. Once this physician said earlier that she doesn't have common sense, I would say that she's not very mature. And because of that, I think that when you plant these ideas in her mind, she sort of accepts them, thinking, not knowing whether or not it's legal or illegal. So I agree, or I understand how he could say that this might be a problem for her. And I think it's a great argument for the defense, frankly.
Well, there's a difference between her first interview and her second interview. Are you comfortable that she confessed in her second interview to burning the baby, to squeezing the baby to death, or was she pressured? Was she fed those answers by the interrogators? Because let's not forget, they came in thinking they were confident. They thought they had strong evidence that the baby was burned. We later learned that evidence is shaky and that the forensic anthropologist backtracked on that claim. So what do you think?
I think it's always difficult when you have a witness or a defendant who changes his or her story, because you never want the jury to think that this individual is lying, because then the jury can't determine, well, were you telling the truth at first, or are you telling the truth now? So that is definitely a problem. But I think there is some evidence to show that when she came in, she was telling the truth. You could see that these tapes were taking a very long time. You could see that the police officer was, sort of goading her on and trying to get her to basically make a confession. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the entire tape, you feel sorry for her. You feel like, where are your parents? Where is your attorney? So I think there's a good argument to be made there.
I'm glad you mentioned the parents. I want to talk about that in a minute, why Skylar's mother was not called to the stand, even though she was potentially a prosecution witness. We'll get to that in a second. Let's play a little bit more of the doctor from yesterday. Okay, so this is a really strong witness for the defense. Now, Terry, that wasn't the only witnesses we saw. We also saw these character evidence, these character witnesses coming forward. And here's my perspective. I'm curious what you think, if I'm right here. Tell me if I'm right or I'm completely wrong. So earlier on in the case, the judge said, jury, you're going to hear a bunch of character witnesses for the defense. You're not supposed to consider them for sympathetic reasons. You're not supposed to say, hey, I feel bad for the defendant. But what they're really supposed to be doing is to show that what the defendant's accused of is not in conformity with her character, not in conformity with who she is. And they kept talking about how great a girl she was, how great of a student she was, that she's a good person, she would never hurt anybody. But there was an interesting moment when the defense said to the judge, Judge, can you instruct the jury that the prosecution can then put on their own character witnesses, their own witnesses to discuss how she's a bad person? Now, I'm asking why they said that, because I think they knew the prosecution had no witnesses to call because the state didn't put on a rebuttal case. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. You are never, as an attorney, supposed to ask a question that you don't know the answer to. The risk, though, in the defense doing that is at the last minute, the prosecution could come up with a character witness to show that her character is bad. But the defense was making a calculated guess there that this is her character. There are many people, I think Ashley, her friend, came on to say that she's just so kind to everyone. She's always talking to people, even people who aren't in her inner circle. And I think that the defense must have known that there isn't anyone who can say that this is a bad person.
Well, then why did the state have her mother on standby? Why was she sequestered? Why was she not actually called as a witness, but she could have been? What's going on there?
You know, I have mixed feelings about the mom here. I think she imposes a lot of guilt on her daughter. And I think that the prosecution was a little bit worried that the mother may come across as a really bad person, someone who has not physically or even mentally abused her daughter, but at least part of the cause for her daughter's personality disorder. So I think the prosecution was a little worried that the mother's testimony might actually help the defense here.
That's fascinating. So much to break down in this case, and we haven't even hit our first break. Well, we're going to hit it right now. Let's hit our break. When we come back, we have a lot more to cover in this case. Busy day here on Law and Crime, 3 cases. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.